Hey guys, musicninjamat here, doing something a little bit different today. Basically, I had so many different things that I wanted to make videos on. However, with my work schedule and everything else, it was proving very difficult to make all these different videos that I wanted to. So I decided instead to just make this one big mega video and talk about everything here. There will be spoilers, of course, for everything that I'm going to speak about, and I'll chuck those timestamps down below to break it all down so that you can see all the different subjects. Okay, so I'm actually going to be starting with Shazam, my sort of mini movie review of it, because I got a chance to go and see it. So with the characters that stood out to me, Billy was amazing in this. He was intelligent and charming and funny, very likeable as a character. He also had a really good character arc in this movie. All he really wants to do is find a family, and his big emotional hook throughout the film, and then especially towards the end, is just the fact that he thought his mum lost him, but in actual fact, she just kind of left him. But he realises that his family is with his foster family. And then obviously Billy, when he's in his Shazam form, this is so well done because of the fact that Shazam still acts like a kid. You can tell it's Billy in there. Just really fun seeing him deal with all these different powers. It's just a very heartwarming sort of character. We've got Freddy as well, and Freddy to me is the main source of comedy within the film, and it's really interesting seeing him go from this sort of social outcast being thrown into the superhero world. He's just one of the best supporting / main characters ever, really, for me in a DC movie. The rest of the family as a whole, I wasn't sold on them at first, but as the movie went on, I learned to just really fall in love with them and their little quirks. They're each their own unique character, and it's amazing seeing the family dynamic and just how close they all are. It's great because they each get to stand out, but still keep a more supporting role in a way. Overall, just the whole cast is great, like even cameo appearances, whatever, it's all brilliant. The villain as well I thought was very interesting, because we actually start the movie with his origin, and it's quite lengthy. We really go into the motivations of this character. Mark Strong, of course, is just awesome in this role. I actually wish we'd spent maybe just a bit more time with the villain on the screen, but he is just sort of a host for the 7 deadly sins. Of course, this is always an awesome idea for a villain, the 7 deadly sins themselves. Loved their designs as well, and we even got to see their origins and motivations. Like, everything was laid out for us, which I really enjoyed, but it was laid out in a very organic way. One thing I will say about the cast, but not in a bad way, sometimes the acting is quite cheesy. However, it's cheesy in a good old-fashioned comic book movie way. I like this film as well because it's a simple story. He gets the powers, he misuses them, learns his lesson, and he beats the villain and saves the day. Very simple formula. And the tone was interesting because it was really fun, light-hearted, and every now and again, horror. Full-on horror, like some of the 7 deadly sins and their attacks, really quite terrifying. But I feel like it's a good way to balance the childlike way that Billy will see the world and what the world can actually be like. There was actually a lot in this movie, but it didn't feel too crammed, and I actually thought the pacing was pretty good. Of course, the overall theme for this movie is just family throughout, and the movie makes use of some really amazing music. One thing I just wanted to talk about, because it's the big oh my god moment of the movie, is the fact that, of course, we do get to see the full family, all the kids with powers in their superhero forms. And this was actually ruined by merchandise, by some pop vinyls, but by the time I got round to seeing the movie, I'd forgotten about it, so I was still like, this is awesome. There's also just some really fun references to a lot of the DC universe, such as Superman turning up at the end, but just as a little fun cameo. Obviously a lot of references to Batman as well. We see Freddy's different superhero memorabilia that he has, and there's also a little reference where they call Shazam Zapped in America, Omega, which I was like, oh, that's a fun little nod to Marvel there. And of course we got some post-credit scenes which set up Mr. Mind as the next potential villain for Shazam 2. And then we just get a little comedy scene of them testing if Shazam can talk to fish, and when he sort of points out that's dumb, Freddy's like, dude, Aquaman. And this scene just made me want Shazam to meet the other heroes, because it's almost like in the Justice League movie they tried to use Flash as their like Spider-Man in a way, and I'm like, well, you should have had Shazam, because all the other superheroes would see an adult and not realise he's a kid, and he would be a kid trying to hang out with Batman and everything. It would be really cool to see. Moving on now, subject-wise, to probably the largest subject in this video, which is WrestleMania. Now, I have tried to condense my notes down as much as I can, but this was like an 8-hour event and 16 matches, so you will need to be patient with me. So we had the pre-show, and we had the Cruiserweight title match kicking things off. I had Buddy Murphy as my pick in this one. This was just an incredibly intense, hard-hitting match throughout. Tony Nese won, and I would say it was actually quite shocking that he won. I don't think anyone was expecting this, and it was a decent first match to kick off the show. We then had the Women's Battle Royal, and I had Asuka as my pick for this one. A lot of women really got chance to stand out in this match and have some really great moments. There was a few awkward tumbles over the ropes, but nothing too bad. Of course, it looked like Sarah Logan had won, which I was like, wow, what a great choice. It's something different, but then Carmella comes in to win the whole thing. And really, I was enjoying this match up until that ending. We had the Raw Tag Team titles, and I had Kurt and Zack to win this one, and it was a classic case of Zack and Kurt, they're getting beat down by the Revival until they're able to come back. Kurt gets fired up, has this incredible offense, and he just wrestles incredibly smart once he gets going. It was a possum pin by Kurt to pick up the win, and I just thought this was a very well-paced match and a very feel-good match as well. We had the Men's Battle Royal then, and I had Ali as my pick. Again, a handful of superstars really got a chance to shine and look really good in this one. Shout out as well to the fact that Harper was in this match. It was great seeing him. One moment that stood out just because I found it odd was Andrade eliminating himself with like a Hurricanrana off the apron. I actually thought towards the end that the SNL guys were going to win and eliminate Braun and the Hardys, but then of course Braun just goes beast mode and ends up eliminating everybody and winning the match. This match was okay, but especially towards the end I just found it a little bit silly and I wasn't really into it. Moving on to the main show now, and Hogan arrived to hype up the crowd, and I thought this was interesting because Big E actually sent out a tweet saying he believes Hogan deserves a second chance. We kicked off the show with the Universal Championship match. I had Seth for this one. Heyman came straight down to the ring in a nice transition, and this is something I will praise WWE for. These transitions where segments blend in together as one ends, the next one starts. I really like it. And Paul Heyman actually mentioned Vegas. This could be a UFC thing or an AEW thing maybe. Seth had a really cool entrance, and I really liked his new ring gear as well. So Brock ends up attacking Seth before the match. It's a huge beatdown, but Seth mounts a comeback. He hits 3 curb stomps and he beats Brock. And it was cool that Seth celebrated by doing like the spinning belt thing. But this was a crazy way to kick off the show. Really enjoyed it. We had AJ Styles versus Randy Orton, and I had Randy Orton as my pick for this one. The crowd was actually really amazing for this, just really into it, and the crowd was just pretty hyped for the night, which really adds to the event. And this match just had some really well done spots, some things that were a little bit unexpected. Usually you can see what's going to happen next a mile away, but you couldn't with this one, and AJ actually ended up picking up the win. And overall I was like, you know what, this was an okay match. Yeah. We had the SmackDown Tag Team title match. I had the Usos to retain in this one. As you'd expect, there was action all over the place throughout this match. I really liked the big corner spot with all the men involved, and as they went over, Ricochet managed to land safely. Towards the end it was just packed with finishers and hard hitting shots, and then the Usos won, and this was a pretty great and fun tag team match. We got a look at the Hall of Fame, and I thought Tori Wilson's speech was hilarious. It just looked like a great night overall, in a sense. Apart from, of course, unfortunately, Bret Hart being attacked by a fan, that was just so weird, but I believe it's all been dealt with now. And I liked that they had tributes to people like China and the Anvil. I thought that was a really nice touch. We then had Miz versus Shane, and I had Shane in this one, and I actually really like the story and build up to this match, and I really like the stipulation as well. Shane's really playing up on this best in the world gimmick now. Miz's dad got involved in the match and tried to help, but ended up being attacked. The match was very physical. There were certain spots where I just thought, oh, that actually looks quite bad. And it ended with the suplex off the platform. Like, Miz suplexes Shane, and then because Shane landed on top, Shane got the pin and the win. And I was just a bit like, I don't know how to feel about that. Next up, we had the Women's Tag Team Championship match, and I had the Iconics for this one. I loved the Iconics' attire and their attitude, just the way they were in the ring, like doing the pose midway through the match. And to be fair, each team had a moment in this. There was just some really good tag team wrestling in this. The ending as well was nuts. Bayley took a glam slam off the top rope. The Iconics came in, threw Beth out, and were able to get the win. This match really was just a great tag team bout, and I think it really did a good job at highlighting the Iconics. If you already weren't sold on them, you should be now. Next up is the match I was most excited for, the WWE title match. I had Kofi to win this one. Of course, this has been an epic build, a great story going into this match. We even had everyone watching backstage in the locker room. The match was incredibly physical. It was tactical as well. The pacing was very well done. Seeing Kofi kick out of the knee, seeing Kofi fight his way out of a submission hold, it was all amazing. Kofi picked up the win. He celebrated with the old WWE belt. He had his kids in the ring. It was emotional. It was amazing. And this was match of the night for me, easily. We had a nice little cameo appearance with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash being the SNL guys' doctors. I just thought that was really fun. The US title match, I had Joe for this one, and it looked like Ray would win early on, hitting a 619, that kind of thing, but Joe caught him, choked him out. Very quick match, but I didn't mind. Joe needs to do this. Joe needs to look like an absolute beast in his title defenses. We had Drew versus Roman, and I had Roman for this one. I liked the build to this because it was very personal, some of the things that Drew was saying, and that made the feud more intense. And the question on everyone's mind was, is Roman 100%, which adds to the story and the intrigue of the match. I thought this match, again, incredibly physical, but it seemed a little bit short to me. Roman ended up getting the win, and I wonder in this match, was it a way to test Roman in a singles match just to see how he did, sort of thing. We then had Elias putting on his show. He's playing all his instruments. Actually a really cool show to watch. And then we have this mysterious video comes up, and John Cena comes out in his old Doctor of Thugonomics gimmick, and he acts quite heelish, saying he's going to bury Elias, all this kind of stuff. And this made me really excited because I thought this was setting up Cena coming out later in the night to face Angle. We had Batista versus Triple H, and I had Triple H for this one. This is a long-term feud, long-term storytelling, which I really like. And Triple H's Mad Max entrance was actually really dope. There was just a brutal use of weapons throughout this match. It was really good back and forth between the two. Ric Flair ended up coming down and helping Triple H win, and I loved that Triple H did this like jumping sledgehammer shot into the pedigree to get the win. This match was actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be, and I think the stipulation actually really helped the match. We had Kurt versus Corbin, and as I mentioned earlier, I actually had, as my prediction, John Cena to come down, maybe attack Corbin, replace him, and then he faces Kurt Angle and Cena goes over. Kurt looked incredibly fired up and went on the attack. Corbin actually worked really well in this match, and I liked how he was mocking John Cena, riling up the crowd, and then Corbin just sort of won and it was over. And I honestly don't know how I feel about this match. We had the IC title match, and I had Finn for this one. Really liked Bobby Lashley's attire, this like demon hunter look for him, but I don't know what I make of this new version of Demon Finn, because it's new face paint and he growls a lot and sticks his tongue out a lot, and I'm like, this is weird. Finn was just super intense, ended up picking up the win, and this match, again, even though it was short, I thought it was fun and it sort of kept me hyped, so I didn't mind it. Finally, our main event, the triple threat women's match, winner take all, and I had Becky for this one. I loved all three women's entrances, they were just class. It had a big fight feel, which is what you need for your main event. Big fight feel, you're feeling hyped up. Ronda took a really nasty fall from the apron, and I'm pretty sure it was this that broke her hand/wrist. I loved how they were using their moves and their finishers, trying to lock in submissions on two people at once. Because that's another thing that hit me, is all three women use submissions. Ronda's leg as well looked really bad in this. It was quite badly bruised. A thing that I thought was really good in this match, which I think you need in matches, is good verbal storytelling. You're having the match, but you need those little snippets of trash talking or addressing the crowd to draw people into the story you're trying to tell. So the ending, you had the Piper's Pit, which was reversed by Becky into a pinfall. However, Ronda's shoulder was up, and apparently everyone is saying this was actually a botched ending. I didn't mind it, it just felt too sudden for me, because I think they said the ending was meant to be Becky actually tapping out Charlotte, but this was probably my second favourite match of the night. Like I said, big fight feel, that's what you really need, and we got to see Becky finally just win both titles. This was the big payoff after this feud has been built, and kind of because of the ending, there's room for a lot of different things to happen. Also, a really quick note, I started watching Ronda Rousey's YouTube channel, and the video she did about her future after WrestleMania is one of the funniest things ever. Go and watch it. Before I get into the Raw and SmackDown after WrestleMania, there was another bit of news, which was at G1. Enzo and Cass turned up and just jumped the barricades, and it looks like it is a work, but I'm curious what you guys think about it. So with the Raw and SmackDown, I'll just talk about what stood out to me specifically. With Raw and its main event, it did make me wonder, are they going to start unifying the titles? I think this could work as long as you kept up the Battle of the Brands thing, so the brands want the championships. Angle came back and took out Corbin, which made me think, what's going on? And then Lars Sullivan came down and attacked Kurt. So it was cool getting a debut, but what a weird situation. Lacey Evans finally walks down and does something. She attacked Becky Lynch, and it looked like this is going to be Becky's next feud, which is insane because it's a huge spot for Lacey. One thing that did make me excited on this Raw is the tease of returns and new gimmicks for people. It just looks like there's a lot of new on the way, which is what we need. Sami Zayn cut an incredible promo on the fans, basically saying how toxic they are, saying, look, it's not the McMahons, it's not the wrestlers, it's the fans that ruin this company. And it was very interesting because Sammy's promo is talking about something very real. I mean, they cheered the hell out of him anyway, so. Undertaker came back and took out Elias, and this was just like, why wasn't he at Mania? What does this mean? The last thing from Raw was, of course, it was Dean Ambrose last night on Raw. He ended up just getting put through a table in his last match, and I think it was Bobby Lashley he was facing, and Bobby was like, I'll take care of your wife. It was actually after Raw went off the air and Seth and Roman wanted to say goodbye to Dean. This was the truly special moment. Dean came down and he said goodbye. He said he's busted his ass for this company for so long, and he said Arn Anderson's actually said that the Shield was 2 indie schmucks and a football player. He was just very honest and very real and got his feelings across about why he's leaving without sort of slagging off the company. And then to end it, the Shield music played, which I thought was a really nice touch. On SmackDown, SmackDown, you had the New Day sort of celebrating, and when Kofi said this wasn't in the script, I loved that as a line because it has a lot of meanings to it. We had a great 6-man tag team match, and Aleister Black, Ricochet and Ali should just be a team, should just be a stable, because they're awesome together. And it was interesting because after the match, Orton comes out, hits an RKO, and then he's followed by Kevin Owens, who hits a stunner, and I'm wondering, is this setting up a feud between Randy and Kevin? Braun coming out to battle Joe, that was really cool as well, and I think it would be an awesome feud. Paige says she's bringing a tag team, a new one, to SmackDown, and people are wondering, will it be the Sky Pirates? Could Paige be cleared to wrestle? Who knows? The Iconics retained their titles, which I was happy about, and they did an interview afterwards which had me in absolute stitches. Once again, you looked and it looked like even they were trying not to laugh. The Hardys won the SmackDown Tag Team titles, but then were attacked by Lars Sullivan. So it was one of those moments where you're like, oh, that's cool, a title change. And then it was interrupted. Once again, Lacey attacked Becky. And at this point, I'm like, do Raw and SmackDown matter as brands anymore? You're getting into the habit of stuff happens on Raw, and then it just kind of happens again on SmackDown. We need to not get back into that habit. And finally, Sami Zayn came out, and this time just looked to the fans and just went, you're not even worth it, and just left. Really cool character for Sami. So the Superstar Shake-Up is next week, and depending on if anything really big happens or if it really takes my interest, I might make a video about it. So we're moving on now to a few different trailers. We had a new Endgame clip. And what we found out from this is that Thanos uses the stones again, but what did he use them for? Are they tracking him via the stones? And we find out that their plan is to use the stones to bring everybody back. I love the fact that Carol says, it's going to work this time because now you've got me. And she also explains when they ask, where the hell were you? She says there's a lot of planets in the universe and not all of them have the Avengers. There's a part as well which is from the trailer of Thor sort of staring at Captain Marvel, and he says, I like this one. If you listen, it sounds like there is a woman's voice saying, I have telepathy. I didn't realise this at first, and then I read it online, went back, and you can definitely hear a voice. So I'm wondering, is this a new character? Is this just a troll put in there? Or is this an ability that Carol's gonna have? At the end, Cap saying, let's go get this son of a bitch, as the Avengers theme swells, that just really got me. I was like, I can't handle this movie. And they released a new Endgame TV spot, where we just find out that they're actually being split into teams and they have different missions. And Cap's giving this big motivational speech, and Rocket goes, wow, he's really good at that. And Ant-Man's just like, yeah, he is. We finally got a Star Wars Episode 9 trailer. The first minute and a half, nothing really happens, and then everything happens. We see Kylo Ren repairing his helmet, and it actually looks a lot cooler now because it's got all the red lines down it. We get to see Lando with Chewie. We see Leia is in this film, and I'm wondering what is her story going to be, of course. We get to see the remnants of the Death Star, and then finally, as the trailer closes, and as you hear Luke's voice saying, no one's ever really gone, we hear the Emperor's laugh, which is awesome. This film looks like it could just be 2.5 hours of fan service, a proper way to round out this epic saga. But I'm hoping Palpatine doesn't just come back and it turns out he never died. I'd like to see him as the Sith version of a Force ghost. The movie is called The Rise of Skywalker, and it comes out in December. I'm actually excited for it. This is very rare for me because I'd sort of fallen out of love with Star Wars, and this has pulled me right back in. We also finally got a trailer for the Fallen Order video game, and we're still not quite sure what the game is as far as gameplay goes. People were hoping for an open world game, but they've got Cameron Monaghan as the main character. You can tell it's him with the character design. He's the Joker in Gotham, so that's awesome. So he's going to be our lead character, and it looks like we've got an original story here taking place after Order 66 was given. So I think it will actually be a campaign, you know, like a 10-15 hour campaign that you play through. And the idea is it's a surviving Jedi after that event took place, and how does he keep going? And this was just a gorgeous cinematic trailer, and it's actually out on the 15th of November. Finally, guys, I've actually got a comic book for you. Yes, another new series started. We've got Symbiote Spider-Man issue 1. This is written by Peter David with Greg Land on pencils, and this takes place just after the original Secret Wars. So the plot of this, we see Spider-Man fighting Mysterio, and Spider-Man is a lot more aggressive throughout this story, probably because of the suit. We get a flashback then of Mysterio, and he's talking to his friend Johnny, who works for the Kingpin, and they're bantering back and forth. Mysterio says he's planning to rob a bank, and the idea is, his friend Johnny is like, look, you're not a proper supervillain. He says you've never killed anyone, there's no blood on your hands. During the bank robbery, things go wrong and a woman ends up being shot. Mysterio disappears, and we see later on he is absolutely distraught over the death of this woman. We then see Peter, and he's visited by Felicia, because at this time that's who he was seeing. And she says she wants to get to know Peter Parker more. So Peter actually takes her to Uncle Ben's grave. And while they are there, Peter looks and he sees Mysterio as Quentin Beck looking at him. And Peter sort of panics, thinking, oh god, he knows who I am. However, we then see it from Mysterio's side, and he was visiting the grave of the woman who died. And as he looks over, Felicia looks like that woman, and it kind of haunts him and spooks him a bit. And Mysterio basically says he doesn't want to do this anymore. He never wanted to do this, and he's giving up. He decides to make one last film, announcing his retirement, but then Spider-Man turns up and just starts beating the crap into him. Spider-Man doesn't even sense any danger, and is still like, no, I'll just beat the crap into him. But obviously at this point now, we're back at the start of the book when they were fighting. Spider-Man questions Mysterio, asking what he was doing, and Mysterio says, I was mourning my sister, okay? And as Spider-Man sort of backs off of him, Mysterio sets a trap off and escapes. We get a really cute scene in between this battle of Felicia actually meeting Aunt May at Uncle Ben's grave and them having a chat. Peter manages to escape this explosion in this trap, and we see Mysterio just watching him from the shadows, and Mysterio just looks ready to really step up his game. So the art in this book, it's absolutely solid, it's crisp, there's very detailed characters and backgrounds, good colours as well, and it's very cinematic. And actually, I look and I'm like, this is some of my favourite kind of art. I always compare art to the art in Civil War, because that is just my favourite art of all time. So here's an example of the art. Show another example where you can actually see character designs out of costume. With the writing in this, I think the characters are all written very well. Spider-Man, perfect level of quippy, but also you've got this aggressive streak in him with the suit on. And Mysterio isn't just a joke in this. He's not a lame villain. He's a lot more intelligent and sinister and interesting. There's dimensions to him. I think it's got a good story structure with it coming full circle. And I really like the scene of Felicia talking to Aunt May, because Aunt May is just so switched on. Like, Felicia goes to call herself Peter's lover, and she stops herself and says girlfriend, and Aunt May says, you can say lover, I may be old but I'm not dead. And Aunt May says, does Peter listen to you? And Felicia's like, depends. And Aunt May goes, well, you tell him to go back to school, I think he's kind of wasting his life. And then when Felicia says, oh, it was nice to meet you, Aunt May's like, are you sure? Because you don't seem that fussed. And Felicia's like, I'm positive. And it's cute because it shows Felicia as seen more of the life of Peter Parker and what matters to him. Overall, I really liked this. It's got stunning art. Mysterio is an interesting villain. The character interactions are absolutely great. As I said, I really like that little side scene with Felicia and Aunt May, and I like how this is slotted into continuity so well. It's a fun story and I can't wait to keep reading. So that's everything I wanted to talk about, guys. As you saw, there was a lot in there, and I'm still trying to get my head around YouTube and the format and how will it work for me. I've gone over different schedules so many times where I've gone, oh, I want to do these shows on these days. And the thing is, with work and everything else, it is difficult to make constant content because it's just me. I'm filming it all, I'm editing it all. But I think I might just start doing more of this, where I have like a Music Ninja Mat show and it's just a bunch of topics that I'll talk about. That way it's just one video, but it's something I'll play around with a bit more and try and figure out, and then let you guys know if it becomes a proper regular thing. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out. Check out the links in the description down below. Check out the whole channel, especially the playlists, and I will see all of you in the next one.